What's up there? This is a tutorial VFX breakdown for my latest video I just made for a music video for Eideez. Eideez, I think his name is. It's a confusing name, honestly. Very, very, very confusing to me. But I wanted to be able to show off the breakdown of how I made what I made necessarily. I made a lot of it just with After Effects. So I'm gonna put up a list on the screen here now of all the effects that I used, the elements that I used, all that type of stuff. And so I used a lot of plugins that I had at my disposal. I used the AE transform. I used sound keys. I used CC Lens, optics compensation. I used a lot of different Red Giant plugins. I absolutely love their suite that they have. I used a few Robite plugins. I used Pixel Sorter. Then I used Deep Glow, modulation, and then I also used Video Copilot's Twitch with the bad distortion preset. I didn't want to have to say out every single one of them because, that's just a lot to read off. And then it just blows your head off kind of too. So then I also rendered out some Cinema 4D text. I used a Cinema 4D wireframe with a text render for it also, which was like really cool. I used an Instagram photo from Eideez Instagram. Then I used a pre-rendered pixel sorter like footage that I made myself from using pixel sorter. I didn't want to use it natively just because of like how annoying it would be just to work with that basically all by itself. I made a completely different composition for pixel sorter. I made it 4K. I ended up actually discovering that QuickTime can only export by 2000 of 2000 or whatever, and I'm like, God damn it. So I ended up didn't really using the 4K option, but I did use like a 1080p from a 4K export type design or whatever. So the source of the pixel sorting is 4K, and I just exported it as like 1080p. Super annoying, but I know. So then I made like little photos of like an X and triangles and stuff. Then when I was using Trapcode Mir, whatever you want to call it, I guess. Then I ended up picking like a 3D city model, which was like really cool when I brought that together. For the sake of After Effects trying to handle everything that I had to do and deal with, I had to end up pre-comping and pre-rendering a lot of the stuff that I did. But I'm averaging somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe, I don't know, I feel like a 200, maybe, I don't know, I'm gonna say 300 layers, maybe. I can't even count all of them, but I'm gonna give you the ballpark of that for the most part. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So this is like I'm gonna call this whole comp. This was really the main comp that I had in here, but I at the end of my me finishing this, I had to end up just making it one whole comp basically when I wanted to finish rendering. Because honestly, me exporting this was just insanity basically. I'm gonna rename this fade right now, real quick, just because naming layers kind of helps a lot. So then, what I ended up doing was I ended up when I was working in this main comp, I would take out when I was getting towards the end of the section that was like about here in this section where the blue line is. I ended up using that for like where this is basically, if you know what I mean. So where there's this whole section missing here or whatever was where the 3D text warp and awesomeness was that. And then I ended up using the trap code Mir also too with the 3D city and stuff. So that's where I was doing that. So just bringing everything together. I was dealing with a lot of layers. I'm gonna try seeing if in my head if I can just use like 28 and 49 and whatever, but some of the layers aren't even totally necessary. So I don't know. I just was dealing with so many layers. I'm gonna probably, honestly, probably be exaggerating 300 or 200 layers, but it was just a lot. Honestly, I'm gonna go with that to deal with for a lot of this. So like, I even ran into moments where even just pre-rendering, like pre-comping, like when you do pre-render here, when I ended up doing that, when I was doing this in the process of it, After Effects was just straight up crashing, and it was like, I'm not gonna wanna, like, play this or pre-render it or whatever. And I had to fiddle around with it a lot. I had to close out. I could only really have After Effects open. I was using so many, like, basically I was just using so much RAM, that I got to a point in which me just having this open, and when you know that when you do purge and then you say all memory and disk cache, it was already just taking up like 3 gigabytes of memory, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So for me, that was what I was dealing with. After Effects was just being buggy. I did even have it crash probably 2 times just working on it initially. Thank God for me having the ability for saving all the time, just manually, just doing Control S whenever I think about it. So I'm basically saving every single time I do something big or before I'm about to be doing something really big. So being in the habit of that is really good. I can even go right now and show you in Cinema 4D what I basically very low key made, just for doing some of the 3D spinning and stuff. Right now, I'm going to show you that. So here we are inside of Cinema 4D, where I basically did 2 different versions of what I wanted in the same kind of thing, basically. So this was just the basic, simple idea, just have that go in, and then I would just layer more on later, like succession over time. It's kind of like a loop, but extending it out and stuff manually because I thought it was kind of cool. So basically, what I should have done is I should have done layers for turning on and turning off things. But when I was in the groove, I was just manually turning on and turning off stuff. But yeah. So even with the very first time when I was doing this, even just for um, let's see here, these when I was doing the quick spin, this spin was only a wireframe render, at like 180 frames instead of 130. So I didn't really care about what it was looking like. I didn't add the sky at first, so really simple thing, no bevel, no nothing crazy. Even when I did do rendering, I didn't even really worry about my GI settings or anything. I didn't render or do any of this on my HP Spectre, but I'm showing it on my HP Spectre because of the fact that the computer I was doing this work on, it's very difficult to do screen recording without it getting corrupt or it having a mind of its own. So this is the way I'm doing it right now, is showing off what I've done. So I basically got a pretty nice preview and render of this, what I wanted. So that's how we did the Cinema 4D part. I just rendered it out and went with it. I'm not gonna save that right there. So that's how I did that part of it. When we get into, let's see here, I didn't really make this like friendly for being able to look at for later, just because of pre-comping and having to pre-render stuff and bring things together. Basically, it's not very easy to show off all of it, only because there's things that are here in the beginning that are in whole comp, basically, that I started out with. I even played around with just putting black solids that are like 3 frames long in the middle of random spots just for the hell of it because I thought it looked cool. I didn't want to go through the strenuous task of having to make multiples of them, but I wanted to get an effect of some random like black frames of stuff being there and not being there, basically. So I kind of did that, basically. That's what I did. I ended up using CC Lens, which is like really cool. It's an effect that is inside of After Effects. So if you have After Effects, you're gonna have this plugin. It's really cool. It's just a really simple like fisheye effect. I don't think people really use it in an animated type of style, but they at least play around with using it for maybe other things that they may want to show off as being with a really tight field of view or something. So that's what allows you to do that and everything like that. So it's really cool. When I was making this, it really just started out with making the pixel sort thing first, and I can show you that right now. So this is simply what the composition is. It's only 14 seconds long. It's 1080p, even though when I first made it, it was 4K. Because I really wanted it to be really detailed and like just very poppin' and vibrant too. So I don't even know if I could zoom in to show off the cool detail of it. Because YouTube is going to compress it and stuff. But for the most part, it is a very detailed effect. There's even liquefy in it and everything, and it's really cool with just how interesting it is. And creating this effect is really cool. If you're interested in knowing how to create it, then there is a tutorial on it for YouTube. But I made that first, basically, before I really did anything else, honestly, because I wanted to be able to get the effect of how it's coming out of his eyes and drooling. So this here is the photo of Eideez, where he is where I've even gone in and I photoshopped his eyes already from the beginning, and I just made them white just for like really it being like really cool. I wanted to be able to know where his eye ended and started and was just in general, so that was kind of cool. And then I even played into the effect of what he put here was mobbing, so that's why I did what I did with being able to um, I gotta find it here where I just have the pixel sort go like basically behind it, which is fine. I wish I had no problem with and how I made it, so I thought it was pretty cool to do that and play into that effect, honestly. Um, when I did the pulsating of making the comp just go in and out and scale, I just simply used sound keys and I did a pick whip with keyframes and stuff like that to make it pulsate backwards and forth. So this is another pre-comp again. This is the absolute base render of what you're looking at when you're wanting to see this effect. Okay, so this is what it looks like. This is with it pulsating backwards and forth. Right now, it's not playing real time, but you can kind of just see the pixel sorter doing its thing, looking really cool. You may want to know how I got it perfect looking and everything. This is playing real time with the real frame rate of 30. It looks really cool. Um, I also had to loop the trap code, not the trap code, the pixel sort or whatever I meant. So with pixel sorter, I needed to be able to loop it for about a minute 53 or a minute 51 roughly in that area. So then I also had to make another basic like comp basically just for that at a different point. So this is that here. Basically, this is where it begins, and you can kind of see how up here, it will tell you how it ends up at the final comp, like kind of like the pipeline, basically. So if you click, I think it's this, it will just show you the flow a little bit. But yeah, it just kind of helps you with navigating you through your comps. I know that much. So I can basically show you with you all the different keyframes. So it's like basically like it's just like repeating and fading in and out into itself from a different opacity basically. So it starts anywhere out from like 0 to 100, mathematically right in the middle, from where it was from the 14-second clip, which is kind of cool. So that's what I had to then make the base of that. I surprisingly didn't like pre-comp that, but I kind of maybe had forgotten to or whatever. This whole entire video is in 720p. The photo that he gave me, or what I had to get off of Instagram, was already kind of small, and it was like the photo that he gave me was like, I don't know, it was very close to 720p in height, so I went with making the height be 720p. If I made the photo any bigger, then it's kind of like just gets kind of weird and blurry, honestly. So I ended up making a blurred version of his same like video, like his same like photo basically. I wouldn't really include Gaussian blur as one of the effects that I used, only because of the fact that it's honestly such a simple thing that I just put in the background just so I didn't have to deal with like black bars necessarily. So I wanted to make it at least a little bit more cooler and chill, for making like being a scale in the background, like blurred scale. I think even YouTube will like naturally do that for some videos already. So that's how that works. So then I used sound keys here, and then I tied it into like kind of like the transform or whatever, basically. And I've done this many times before in the past. So the scale, it will just have like an expression that I just pick whip into that, and that the transform mimics whatever this is. And so sound keys will be like, okay, find this area of that like part of the song, of the tune and the spectrum of what you want to hone in on, and then make it have this output of this green line. And you can do three different other things that you may want to make it do basically. And I tell it to source from this MP3 with the waveform basically. And so then, if you want to see what all these keyframes are, I can click the output, and then I can show you like in a graph how it looks basically. So it's basically just, putting sound to a number to an output basically while doing that. And it's honestly like really wild. So it's just really, I think it's doing like a step effect or something weird with it, but it basically will go through however long of whatever section of like a song every single second and apply a value to a keyframe to it. It's a very interesting program. If you're having to use it with any sort of long music, like let's say your composition is like, maybe let's say you're dealing with like a song that's like 3 minutes long, and you want to make a change into the part of the spectrum that you want it to use, then you're going to end up dealing with some lag or hiccups, and After Effects might even crash with it because it's too much data. Also, too, all of this data here and all these keyframes makes your After Effects project file larger. So that's another thing that you may want to keep note of. That's how that is. I only used one range. They give you three ranges for the high, mids, and lows, so you can kind of pick out which one out of those that you want to pick from. But I normally typically just do one, just for the sake of not making the project file so large and what I want, like all these different ranges and stuff to doing. If I really wanted to, I could have the high end be the scale going in and out. I could use the kind of like the deeper part of the song. I think you call that the bass. I could have that affect a opacity value of a solid go on and off or whatever too if I wanted. There's a lot of different things that can be done, but this is kind of like the basics of how that is a bit and stuff like that. Trap code mirror. It basically allowed me to pick from like basically kind of like a library of different 3D shapes and objects that I could pick from. And so then I just ended up picking the city, and I'm like, boom, slap the city in. I have no idea what city it's from. I just went with it and did it. Uh, it was anything trap code like related. Honestly, is something that is just absolutely just going to tank your frame responsiveness. So when you're scrubbing around and stuff, this bar that shows up here, however long it takes to calculate a frame, it will basically completely destroy and eat up your responsiveness and your playback and whatever. So if you're just wanting to preview something back or whatever, then it's just gonna, take a long time roughly. When I was working on this and I was in the groove, I would actually just bring that back, just because I didn't want to use current time because for me that's been kind of buggy for me in general, because it will start somewhere within which that doesn't start with like the frame rate or something. So if you're dealing with skipping frames, that will absolutely just kill like your way of getting it to flow and start right and whatever, and the right stuff that's already rendered or not. So I don't skip any frames anymore, and I just say start of range, and I don't have any problems. Because in the past I've had problems with using skip and using current time, because you're basically offsetting the previews of what's already been previewed. And if you're not right on the dime from what you had last previewed from to then skip from, then you're basically re-rendering frames that you've told it already to skip. So then you might as well not even use it. So just show off the part that you want to work on and tell it to forget the rest of everything here on the left, while everything else is already pre-rendered for yourself basically, and it makes it way easier working on this. Same thing for here. Here you can see that I had two groups of that Cinema 4D render of it just going inwards and zooming into the middle here. I would have liked the camera to just go right through the D letter of Eideez or whatever I think his name is, when I was doing that, but then it threw off the perspective of everything else, so I had to just go right down the center anyways. It just kind of threw off the perspective of the thickness of the characters. So when I was working on it, I was just like, oh, why can't I just work with it just because of the perspective of just the field of view and how 3D is. So I had to just end up just going right down the middle anyways. All they are is just duplicates. I didn't render it with being duplicates or anything. I could have done something cool here with doing every other like kind of one turned on. That would have been really cool. I was thinking about trying to bring in the wireframe somewhere too, but that just didn't end up working for me to. I wanted to mix in the wireframe and also the rendered version. I wanted to have an Octane rendered version, so it was like some glossy chrome version. But then stuff was already taking too long to render anyways, and thinking about all these other crazy things, it just got to be too much, honestly. So then, when I started making the second lettering, I should have a little bit spaced them out better, because you only really see kind of the full name again very shortly. But that's just the likelihood of just how I made this. I just also too had to end up doing another like kind of like black solid one to make the background not that light because of the dealing with there's a lot of sun with his initial photo already, so it just made it difficult working with white stuff and everything here. So I had to end up adding some contrast, which just basically just adding in black kind of mist basically, and that was my version of doing that, honestly. um so that's kind of how that went. I really just got into just slapping things there and slap things there and see how it looks and go with it. When I really got into the flow of it, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna take this, that, there, and just like when you're just making a Picasso painting, you don't think about it. You just slap it together, see how it looks, keep the flow going, and go with it. And so that's what I ended up doing, really. I ended up really liking how modulation would look at times. Modulation I don't have installed on here right now, so I have to install that. But it's kind of what this looks like right here. So I ended up using that, and I thought that was like really cool. I love how it kind of gave you like that bad TV, like another dimension kind of what's the word? There's kind of those Doppler effect type of look, and I thought that was like really cool. So I wanted to be able to definitely include that and use it a bunch. I even had a discovery with the modulation where I could even use a I think it was like a hollow matrix on top of it, and then it would color how the modulation would look, and I thought that was really cool too. I gotta find where that was in the clip, but I ended up mixing them two together. Right now, this part is gonna be very laggy-ish because it's trap form. So when I ended up making this trap form, it's just honestly one of the presets for a landscape or something, and then with that landscape I ended up using a Caladio space, whatever that might mean, and I ended up in just kind of working with that basically. So I think it just mirrors what the other side of the 3D space is or something. I just threw it in there, didn't think about it, and tried to make something cool out of it. I could have done something a little bit more crazier. Honestly, I could have used anything else here. I'm gonna press pause on that. But they have like a bunch of different other options in here. It was just really cool. I could have done some plasma look, a metallic loop or something. I could have used any of these other versions and cool things, but I myself have already done that stuff in the past already. So I kind of really wanted to ultimately really change it up, really. So when I was doing that, I was just kind of like, nah, I'm not gonna repeat what I've done before in the past for other intros and kind of media. So I ended up just doing this just randomly, just slap it in there. Again, because it is white, I ended up using the Hollow Matrix as kind of like a weird, wacky background to use. Here you can see the flow again, where I use CC lens to bring in an effect and bring it out. I tried to be somewhat consistent with that because while I was making it, I was just kind of like, I need something to bring something in and bring something out, basically. So it's kind of like when I was showing something off and I was bringing something in, I had to find another way of bringing it out. And so it's kind of like when you bring something into reality, you want to have it like you don't want it just to pop in and pop out, because if you're dealing with, let's say you have maybe like a car driving on a road or something, and it's just driving on a road, you're not going to just have it pop in and then, disappear and vanish outwards. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of like in certain terms show that car coming in or have a distraction, and then kind of use that to tie that all in together basically, and then I would use something else to distract the viewer with something else going out. So that could be something else happening, like a dog being shown, or the kind of idea. Like, I'm just painting this metaphor. I don't have anything to really show for that, really, but I'm just using like an analogy that kind of makes sense for that. Same thing for like in a video game. You're not gonna let an enemy just spawn in or whatever. You're gonna want to put it behind a room or a door or something else, and then make it walk in, and behind that door it spawned and popped out of thin air. So it's just kind of like a magic trick of what I'm kind of doing with this too. So when you see when this trap code is disappearing or whatever, I use like optics compensation to zoom in and then zoom out to kind of like give it like a transitional type of effect basically. And then I'm kind of using Twitch a little bit, kind of playing with the lights and stuff, and a little bit glitchy and weird. But it's a cool effect to have. Inside of my effects and presets, I have with their plugin bad distortion preset, so it's just set and go with it. It has a preset amount of enables and behaviors already, basically. So it gives you desired effect that you want. So I didn't really mess with it. I just used it. So then here was, what was it? It was just more glitch and chromatic modulation. Uh, this isn't something I can show necessarily because it wasn't pre-comped. So right around here, you can see I'm using modulation again. I'm using the optics compensation, and it's really cool of an effect that I brought together. So that's really cool, honestly, right there. I thought that looked really cool. I should have done that more. But then again, I have to think about my resources and my computer and all that other type of stuff when I'm making these things. I even used optics compensation just in general with the glitch, and looks really nice too. The not the it wasn't optics compensation, the chromatic aberration. And then I even added in some like random pixel sorting again. So let me see here. That was really cool. More modulation again. I actually changed up the settings and I inverted it. I ended up kind of being a little bit more creative towards the end, because when I was looking at it and I was initially working on this, when I was dealing with having to make this, I don't know where I was at when I was making this. Let me see here. Because when you look at this whole, when you look at this, like this whole comp for an example, let's see here. So here, yeah, so that where those were for the 3D warp, that was there. And so then the trap code mirror was here. So if that kind of gives you any type of context, I was actually getting to a point where I was working on this section by section, and as I was going through the sections, I was just kind of like, oh no, I got this huge gap here. What am I gonna do? And so I had to get a little bit more creative, because it's like, okay, I've already used the universe glitch. I've already used modulation so many times. I've already like layered so many things in such a way that I'm like, okay, I gotta end up being more like not sparing, but I had to start really mixing things together again. Uh, and every single time I made an effect, I made sure that it was on a separate I made sure that it was like on a separate like After Effects adjustment layer, because if you're trying to do this all with one adjustment layer, or you're starting to stack plugins within the same adjustment layer, then you end up dealing with After Effects bottlenecking itself and tied in like it's something really hard to describe, but it's something where, like, when I was talking about how it takes a time to render and you start dealing with these effects messing with each other, then there's a certain order in which you have to layer them within inside of the adjustment layer that takes away. If you just use an adjustment layer and you only put one effect in it and you just start mixing them together, then they have like separate boundaries instead of them having the same boundary and trying to fight with it, or you trying to figure out what it is. And then I've actually run into times where I've actually crashed After Effects by doing that too much, or doing it to where me doing something that I actually didn't want to do gave me a consequence of it just crashing the program because of the two plugins having to fight each other or repipe themselves in the pipeline of how After Effects renders plugins. So um, it just was just more just convenient. I can control the timing when they're shown, when they're not shown, easier, just by basically just being having them all on their own different layers, and it just makes it way easier, honestly. So that's how I kind of ended up having to do that. Here is where basically Pixel Sorter would be like right now. So I just ended up doing that right there, and then I ended up ending it. I ended up ending, like, you can see, I ended up like ending the pixel sort with CC lens effects, basically. So you can kind of see that again with me bringing something in and then taking it out easily. So I used modulation. While I was using modulation, I used the modulation to then underlyingly, as you can see here, like right in this section where these two are meeting underneath of it, I used that to then kind of bring in the pixel sort, and then I ended up taking it out with CC lens. So bringing that like needle effect, I'm gonna call it, where you bring something in, take it out, bring it in, take it out, or however, makes a lot more sense to the flow when people are seeing it. And people are gonna be like, okay, it just kind of like masks it and it kind of gives it a distraction, anyways. So if I turn off CC lens and we're looking at, I'm gonna turn off form real quick and the camera and this is where um I don't know if I'll be able to show it in the video, just because of it being stacked the way it is. This is where I was able to stack the holomatrix and the modulation, basically, and that's when I made that discovery that I could basically color the modulation with the holomatrix, basically. And I'm like, whoa, that's like really cool. So instead of just being modulation being white and black lines, then I was able to end up with coloring it, and I'm like, wow, that gives like it kind of gives off that vibe of Odyssey, Space Odyssey or whatever with Dave or whatever. It kind of gave me that vibe with it, and I'm just like, ooh, this is so cool. Even though it's not like in a fish lens or nothing, it kind of gave me that like that computer vibe. So I ended up kind of going with that basically and doing that. Like I was trying to say again, like I did the CC lens to bring in the holomatrix, basically, because if all I did was start this have this like this modulation render from the pre-render, that's how you can see it right now, and then I just end up just going right after that with holomatrix, it wouldn't make sense to me to have it done that way. So that's kind of why I ended up going with and using the CC lens to help bring it in. And the reason why I like using the CC lens is because there is a frame where when I make the size just 0, it makes it black. And then as you go forward with it, it helps bring it to life, basically, like opening up like a lotus flower. And I start off the next frame right next to it within a gap of another frame right before it happens. I have the size of the CC lens be as wide it is, be as wide and as big as it will go, and then I end up shrinking it. I end up shrinking it without it even knowing, because it goes from 500 to 250, and then I just make it really huge and large and just surprise everybody with how cool it looks and everything. So I make it to where it's just kind of like it's like a magic trick with a lot of this. So it's like a needling in and out, like massaging needle effect, and it's really honestly pretty cool, for how a lot of that went. So yeah, that's how that went. This is how I was doing like all these triangle crazy wild renders. So I was using modulation to hide these, but I thought it would be really cool to poke fun at or play around with the idea of Illuminati or whatever without even really noticing it really. I used an exclusion like difference type of effect. So it's kind of like a mode of like how you make something play around with colors. So it's kind of like a difference or a multiply and overlay or screen or add effect basically. Then I was able to play around with what was underneath and affecting those pixels with this. And I even did that a couple of times already. So I was like, yeah, that's really cool. And so I just multiplied a bunch of them, and then I used modulation over top of it to kind of mask it when I did that. So that's where you kind of see all of this like, whoa, like it's just like hit your face and just, it even looks like a bad TV effect in distortion, trying to search for the color of like the signal, and then it's being distorted and just disrupted, and just triangles are just coming at you, and you're just like, what the frick is going on? And all that type of stuff. You can even see here, I was just kind of like, all I did was optics compensate or the whatever thing, and it did an in and out type of move. I could have just done something better where I could have right here at this frame almost. I could have done something to where I could just white the whole frame or just make everything go really negative for the a difference exclusion thing. But I ended up glossing over that honestly. But it's really cool, and you can see how it goes from dark to light. I didn't really do a great job of it, but it works well enough anyways. And then I got the triangles coming at your face and modulation over it and everything, and you're just like, wait, what did I just see? And all that type of stuff. I ended up taking three triangles that are actual shape layers, and I ended up spinning them a bunch of times. And honestly, if you have a really honestly dirty mind to some degree, I am just totally just making this up, and I don't even know if anybody could feel offended in any type of way, but in a funny idea of it, that maybe it could be the Jewish star. But once I really kind of noticed that, I tried to take a step back in it, and that's why I kind of had to offset it in weird ways so that it didn't look like that. It didn't only really look like that for one or two frames, really. So all you could do is say is that it's just a triangle flower weird thing. So I'm gonna go with it being a triangle flower, and then I slap some modulation on it real quick, and I'm just like, you didn't see anything. So I'm kind of communicating as I'm doing this, as I'm doing what I'm showing. I'm kind of communicating in a weird way, like low key way of thing. Wait, there it was again. I think when it kind of synced just perfectly, you'll see it like right about here, maybe. I don't know exactly how many stars or edges that the Jewish star has, but honestly, I don't know enough about it. But I'm just playing with the idea of that it could be representing that. And so I was kind of like, okay, glitch, didn't see it, modulation again. And so then I ended up using, wait, what was it? Another triangle to zoom up or do something wild here? I don't remember. I used some triangle style. I ended up using a triangle shape instead of a triangle that is based on a. I ended up using a triangle that was based as a vector instead of a what do you call it, like a photo or a bitmap basically from like Photoshop. So I ended up doing it in that type of form and how that all came together. But yeah, it's really cool, honestly. I think that there could have been moments where personally, I could have just gone and made his eyes completely white at some points, just so that it was like really, 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 really cool. And then like have the what do you call it, the pixel sort come on and then come off and all that other type of stuff. But I didn't really want to get into all that work already. You can even see here, this is where we got like the bad TV effect going on, and I bring it in again with the CC lens and whatever, and that was really cool. That effect was really easy to make happen, and I thought it was honestly like really cool, like a glitch signal or something. Oh man, I should have used like a triangle. Oh, that would have been really cool to have like this is just VLC that I'm playing this through, but that would have been cool to have like some TV like bad signal or some other text going in there, but that would have been cool or something. But yeah, here I'm just using some trap code whatever. Like no, not trap code, the video copilot Twitch or whatever I meant to say. Um, I didn't really do a great job of bringing modulation in, but then again, it was just bring it in and go with it, honestly. Um, so yeah, I didn't really bring in the text the right way that I wanted to. Because see, it just came in out of nowhere, honestly. It didn't have like a proper transition. But this was at the point where I was just make it, bring it in. I didn't really take notice of my whole transitioning thing right away. But when I really kind of started to nail in on it, I'm like, yeah, this is really cool. I thought this was really awesome. And so I wanted to do the glitch effect on the whole like wireframe idea. I thought that was like really cool. And then right after that wireframe, then I'm like, I'm gonna outdo myself in wireframe. Then I brought in this whole city and everything. I don't even think that I even like did a great job with trying to mask it and like try to bring it in the right way. Just because like we went from this to then going into that, so I'm like, does it work? But it does. And so then, I don't know why I did the whole X thing, but in my mind, like I've seen TV shows do something similar to this, so I'm like, why not? I'm gonna throw that effect in. I thought it looks really cool. So I was just doing something random. Maybe something random, like I'm gonna go with something like, dude, I don't even know if this is an actual example, but maybe X Files or some of those weird like creepy television shows that tell creepy stories, like 2020 Vision or whatever they call that show or whatever. But yeah, that's just kind of like some crazy stuff here that I was just brainstorming that I'm like, that looks cool. And then I did actually somewhere in here actually use like a black frame to take out the X's. I could have just extended their length or extended the rotation of them or whatever, but I'm like, nah, I don't need to worry about all that. I could just use a three frame like black frame or whatever to just bring them in and bring them out. And then I kind of used that. This is kind of like a cheap transition. It wasn't done right as a right transition, but I did eventually try to do something in a certain type of fashion to at least try to blink it off. I use dot pixels as a cool way to actually, you can see here, bring something in properly, which was nice. And so then this is when the 3D text was like zoom and modulation, which was like really cool. Just tons of use of Video Copilot's Twitch and the glitch effect and everything else. And I don't know. I'm trying to get. I think I'm getting to a point where I'm just looping myself. But once you kind of get a flow of it, you're just like, wow, it's really cool. I use the X as a spin in and a spin out because I was thinking, how great and how cool would it be to, like, I don't know, I think you've seen, like, in superhero shows, maybe, where you kind of have something spin in and spin out again. So I was just playing a gimmick on that effect to, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. That would be really cool. And so then I just make it disappear and scale out. Because it scales in and it scales out. Why not? Why not just have it not just blink off or nothing? It may just not have enough frames or something that I gave it to disappear properly, but it disappears nonetheless, and then there's glitch effect, so I'm like, yeah, why not? So then I started playing around with the chromatic aberration effect, crazy thing, playing around with that a little bit too much, and then we're just kind of getting towards the end here, and you can see I got a little bit lazy with just playing just the glitch, and I'm like, I'm out. I was just kind of like, I'm out of here, guys. I can't come up with anything else. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. I kind of had like, I was at like 115. You can see here just how I was at like 115, and then I'm like, really struggling to come up with something creative again, with another creative segment, and I'm just like, just play, just play the universe glitch all throughout it, and then just go with it, and then just kind of like play with it and just let it just drag it out and just like finish it off and taper it off. I mean, even the music began to taper off too with what they were saying or whatever was being talked about in the song. So I'm like, that's good. Then I'm gonna do that same type of tango effect. If you're gonna be start finishing off and you're gonna start not like really talking as much in the song and kind of like just let the tune play out, I'm gonna kind of let the glitches kind of cool down and everything and kind of give it a moment. So that's kind of like what I ended up doing for this whole entire music video type thing. All it simply did and start off with was that I just wanted to do just a simple scale in, scale out, and whatever, but I wanted to be the coolest kid on the block with the craziest amount of glitch effects and basically have fun with it. And so that's what I really ended up doing and achieving. So I feel pretty good with this. Probably some other things that I want to change is I want to slap in the two letters 8 and 0 so that when he says Eideez, that they see the numbers flash in and out and do a different crazy thing and whatever. And I'm gonna be like, yep, buddy. You know it. You just now you kind of get the idea, and then I'm gonna try to get like the next one I'm gonna start doing stuff with is I'm gonna start using like Earth Studio or whatever, and then I'm gonna like take Denver, Colorado, and I'm gonna do like a 360 spin, and then I'm gonna try to get it to be a wireframe maybe or something, or try to get the mesh so that then I can work with that and spin that around with to kind of talk about that he's from there, visually show that basically, not talk, but visually show that off. There's a lot of stuff that I'm probably going to be doing very soon again. I hope to be doing another one of these, and I just took it upon myself to make this. I just wanted to do the cool pixel sorter effect because I learned that from the tutorial that I had seen, and I'm just like, hell yeah, buddy, I'm gonna play around with that. So that's what I ended up doing, and I've probably ended up talking enough here, but hopefully a lot of this was interesting enough. Um, I even did pixel sorter on top of modulation, which was kind of cool too. But I think I've been talking and yappering enough, honestly. But hopefully, this makes enough sense to somebody, and somebody is just like, "Whoa, this is really cool." Um, learning this stuff isn't necessarily difficult, but it's kind of like developing your style, honestly, and then branching that into something, honestly. So, that's really honestly what it takes is just starting with a grain of sand and making a pearl. That's all I can say, really. It's as simple as that is. And even if somebody else is making pearls like you do, you can always either just create something new and then somebody's gonna be like, wow, he didn't just make one pearl, but he made three pearls into like one whole pearl, and then somebody's gonna be like, whoa, like I can't just copy them, but I'm gonna like follow them then. So that's basically everything that came into all of this. That's kind of how this all came together, honestly. So I'm just gonna start like closing this down now, and hopefully, this has been an interesting look into the '80s music video for Turnt Up, and definitely go watch the full video, and hopefully it's interesting enough that somebody's going to put a like on the video, share it to your friends, and so definitely subscribe because I'm going to be doing more of these. And that's really all I got right now, and thank you so much for watching this visual effects breakdown.